It's been over a year since the death of Jayalalithaa, better known as Amma, and now she's made a comeback in the form of an imposing portrait inside the Tamil Nadu Assembly. The problem? The DMK says this is an insult because of the corruption taint on the former Chief Minister. This 7-foot portrait at the center of a colossal spat. When the ruling AIADMK unveiled Jayalalitha's portrait inside the Tamil Nadu Assembly, the DMK dubbed it a black day for democracy, boycotting the event along with PMK and Congress. Barely an hour later, the DMK moved the Madras High Court seeking the portrait's removal. In a scathing statement, DMK Working President M.K. Stalin said if Jayalalithaa was alive, she would now be behind bars along with her aide Shashikala. The AIADMK government has defended the move, saying that the portrait would be a great honour for the people of Tamil Nadu.
It's very clear that someone who is disqualified cannot even contest, who is convicted by a court cannot even contest for the post of the MLA. Probably she is the most venerated leader for the AIADMK party. Let them do that out of the AIADMK funds. Why should they waste the public money on a corrupt, tainted leader?
Today her portrait has been unveiled. So we were literally in tears, all of us. All of us were literally in tears. That will only bring down the pride and prestige of DMK party.
The Madras High Court will hear the DMK's plea for the portrait's removal on Tuesday. This after the plea against portraits of convicted leaders in government buildings has been pending in the Madras High Court already. Jayalalithaa, who passed away in December 2016, was accused in a disproportionate assets case in which her longtime aide VK Shashikala is currently serving a 4-year jail term. At the time of announcing its judgment, the Supreme Court had abated Jayalalitha's sentence on account of her death.
Morally, the question is whether somebody who, had she been alive, would have been convicted and would have had to face a jail term. Whether such a person's portrait should be unveiled in the assembly, I think that's a moral question, not a legal one.
With Shalini Lobo in Chennai, Bureau Report, India Today. Okay, joining us now in the People's Court, Mr. Saravanan of the DMK, Kishore Kumar of the TTV Dinakaran faction, senior journalist and analyst T.S. Sudhir, and my colleague Priyamvada with us in the studio. But I want to start by asking you, Mr. Saravanan, why do you think that it's a quote-unquote disgrace to have the portrait of Jayalalithaa inside the assembly?
Yeah, see, right now the entire nation, the wave is against anti-corruption, and it is the Supreme Court has clearly given a verdict that A1, that is Selvi Jayalalithaa, has participated in the conspiracy, and she abetted the others to amass wealth disproportionate to the known sources of income. In such a situation, is it acceptable to have her portrait at the taxpayers' money? Well, she's their venerated leader, let them have it at their own party office or at their residence, let them turn it to whatever they want. We are not worried about it, but what kind of a message you are sending to the future generation? Are you going to venerate a leader who's tainted with corruption, the highest court? This kind of an incident has no precedence at all. No other modern politician who's been convicted.
How can you venerate someone who's been convicted of corruption and pay tribute to her by putting up her portrait in the temple of democracy?
There are two things. We're talking about this temple of democracy. There is a legal angle to it, and there is a, as is being touted, there is a moral angle to it as well. Now, when you come to the legal angle, the conviction does not apply to her. The Supreme Court has made it very clear that this conviction, it is abated when it comes to her. It does not apply to her. Now, as far as the moral question is concerned, the same assembly had MLAs being elected on the name, on the brand of Dr. Jayalalithaa when she was convicted, which means the temple of democracy is about people's choice, and people have chosen her even when she was convicted. So where is the question of that being trampled upon? One thing. And my friend here talks about conventions, and he talks about prestige and precedent. Mr. Karunanidhi had his parents' statue.
No, let's not go into this whataboutery. You also have a corruption charge, so our corruption charge is okay. And that was never really a logic that worked, Mr. Kishore Kumar.
It's a matter
that
for
the
the
people
court
have
to deliberate
forgotten the
upon.
corruption,
Now,
so it's okay. Forgiven and forgotten.
No, let me quote the United States Supreme Court, which says that the courts are not infallible, not final because they are infallible. They are final and therefore considered infallible. That's all.
So are you saying that the courts are fallible, which is why you are doubting what the Supreme Court has said, Mr. Saravanan?
No, I am not doubting. I am saying I am not in agreement with the verdict.
You're not agreement with the verdict doesn't make any difference.
Yes,
it is still a verdict.
That verdict binds us, but it does not mean that we have to agree with it.
Oh, absolutely. And frankly, our agreement or disagreement doesn't change the verdict. Now, I want to pull up for the benefit of our viewers and your benefit, Mr. Kishore Kumar,
now, when
some of the observations that the Supreme Court made while they were pronouncing the verdict on the disproportionate assets case, which, like you said, has been abated, but only because of the passing away of Jayalalithaa. Had she been alive, that verdict, that conviction would have stood.
That is where
the Supreme Court said, and let me quote now, the disproportionate assets case demonstrates deep-rooted conspiratorial design. Attendant facts demonstrate design to amass vast assets without any compunction, Mr. Kishore Kumar, without any compunction. The court then goes on to say assets held to cover up sinister trail of illicit acquisitions. An attempt, and please pay attention to this,
not in agreement with that.
Deceive and delude process of law.
The court has said.
And frankly, your disagreement makes absolutely no difference. Despite these observations, you still think that Jayalalitha's portrait belongs there in the assembly, right next to that of MGR.
Absolutely. The only disgrace is that it is the only disgrace being that it has been opened by a bunch of people who stand diametrically opposite to what Dr. Jayalalithaa stood for.
Saravanan wants to respond.
Yeah. See, it is their view whether they want to agree to this or not agree to that. It is left to their entire discretion. Of course, nobody would like to believe what the Supreme Court says about their beloved leaders. That apart, see, the government is run by rule of law. That's what I again want to reiterate. If it is their party function or the party thing, we don't have any qualms about it. But when it comes to the government, it has to follow the rule of law in letter and spirit. When it is violated, and that is the reason precisely why we went to the High Court, stating that this should not happen. And earlier also, we filed a case stating that her portrait was found in all the offices, government offices. We wanted that also to be removed. That is setting a wrong precedent. And when we talk about all this, this judgment and everything, you pointed out very, very clearly how the Supreme Court has clearly explained her role. If she had been alive, she would have been convicted by now.
Now, for all the ifs and buts, I would rather that for all the ifs and buts, if you are going to deliberate on the basis of technicalities, I am telling you that the conviction does not apply to her as of now.
No, wait a second, now, Mr. Kishore Kumar. I want to bring in T.S. Sudhir as well. Kishore Kumar very conveniently says that the judgment does not apply. Isn't it a fact, T.S. Sudhir, that this is only out of respect for the fact that the former Chief Minister Jayalalithaa had passed away, that the conviction was put in abeyance? Otherwise, the judgment is still the judgment. She is convicted and rather scathingly indicted, in fact.
Well, if you read the 570-page order, and in fact, I read the entire 570-page order today, Padmaja, the Supreme Court is pretty scathing about all the four accused, Jayalalithaa, Shashikala, Ilavarasi and Sudhakaran. And in its order of 14 February 2017, it said that the appeals against Jayalalithaa stood abated with her death in December 2016. But if you leave that aside, that line, you will see the kind of scathing comments
parts of that judgment that we have
has come up with. Sorry?
Yes, please go on.
Yeah, so the kind of language and the kind of tone and tenor of the judgment is pretty scathing against Jayalalithaa, who is A1 in this particular case. Just to quote a line, it says that Jayalalithaa did not accommodate V.K. Shashikala at Poise Garden out of some philanthropic urge, but with cold-blooded calculation to keep herself secure from any legal complications which may arise from their criminal activities. So that's the kind of tone and tenor of the judgment that was passed by the Supreme Court on the 14th of February 2017. So it's pretty much clear that as far as the Supreme Court was concerned, Jayalalithaa, being a public servant, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu between 1991 and 96, was part and parcel of this entire conspiracy and the disproportionate assets cases. Only because of her death, the appeal against her was abated. So what we are talking about is essentially a technicality.
Exactly, Mr. Kishore Kumar.
The other three stood accused and obviously had to go to jail.
What would you like to tell, Sudhir, to Mr. Kishore Kumar, who is taking refuge behind these technicalities?
No, I think it's just a technicality because people, I think, probably not Mr. Kishore Kumar's camp of TTV Dinakaran, but the other ruling AIADMK would like the world to believe that it was essentially Shashikala, Ilavarasi and Sudhakaran who had essentially conspired, and Jayalalithaa all along those 5 years was completely in the dark about the kind of illegal, unlawful activities, whatever you may call it, that was being carried out by the Manaragudi family. But the fact remains that if that was really the case, why did Jayalalithaa continue with living with Shashikala for 20 years after this entire case came to light in 1996? So essentially it's a cover-up by the AIADMK. Surprisingly, or rather ironically, this is the only platform on which both the AIADMK rebel camp as well as the ruling camp would agree, that is to put up the portrait of Jayalalithaa. But I personally feel that a wrong precedent has been set in Tamil Nadu.
Mr. Kishore Kumar.
A leader who was indicted by the Supreme Court, whose portrait has now been put up inside the Tamil Nadu.
Kishore Kumar.
See, you either will have to deliberate on the technical aspect, or you will have to cling to the moral aspect. Now, when it comes to the moral aspect, the assembly, as you rightly said, is the temple of democracy. Democracy is about the will of the majority of the people. Now, the majority of the people have, when she stood convicted in 2001, had voted for her party. So, the moral aspect is something that the people have brushed aside. Now, as far as the technicalities are concerned, my friend has correctly claimed that he has gone to the court. They have all the rights to go to the court. They can go. They can try and find a way to get their way. But that is not going to. I don't think that's going to stand in the court of law.
So, do you agree with that? The people have given their stamp of approval. So what? How does the Supreme Court's observation matter?
What the temple of, that is what democracy is about. That is what democracy is about. That is what the temple. That is what the temple of democracy stands also.
Mr. Kishore Kumar, so should we disband the Supreme Court, not agree to whatever orders they pass?
The Supreme Court is not, no, all orders of the Supreme Court are not infallible. The judges are not infallible.
That's not the point. The point is that once the Supreme Court is the apex court of the land, once it passes a judgment, it is binding on all parties concerned.
It is binding on all parties does not mean we are accepting to it. And even if you say, going by your own words, that it is binding on all parties, the Supreme Court has said the conviction is not applicable to her. Then why do you jump to the moral aspect? You yourself say, yes, I am quoting the Supreme Court and saying that it has said that the conviction does not apply to her.
As well as on the moral aspect, you are on a weak ground.
You are talking about, no, you either talk about the legal aspect. I am telling you that when they clearly say that the conviction does not apply to her, where is the question of is she being debarred, her portrait being debarred from the assembly?
Can I come in?
Sir, I suggest that you read the 570-page this thing, and if you come to the conclusion that the judges feel that Jayalalithaa is completely innocent, who did not know anything about
that's why I'm saying,
I will go with you. The only reason why the appeals have been abated against her is because of her demise in December 2016.
That is it. That line completes it. That is the reason why her report, there is no bar on her portrait coming up there.
Conspiracy.
Let the court write for 600 pages, 700 pages, 800 pages. How does it matter?
Amazing logic. 517 pages, Kishore Kumar, that are there, 570 pages, out of which at least 6 pages here talk very clearly about a conspiracy that was used to defraud the people. That doesn't matter to you, but one line about how this judgment has been put in abeyance because of her passing away is conclusive enough, Mr. Sarvanan. And of course, the additional logic of Mr. Kishore Kumar, that people voted for her, so what?
No.
Sarvanan,
no, it's
what would you
a
like to say to Kishore Kumar's logic?
The Supreme Court did not say that we are not convicting Selvi Jayalalithaa.
Exactly.
It has merely used a technical term that it is abated. If we look at the other angles of this judgment about how her properties has been attached and it has been ordered to be auctioned off, if you look at that, it clearly gives an indication what was there on the minds of the Supreme Court judges, that the involvement of Selvi Jayalalithaa was running, and that is the reason why they ceased her properties and refused to release those properties. They are under confiscation. The government, the Tamil Nadu government is not doing that.
Mr. Kishore
They have
Kumar?
to confiscate all her properties, auction it off and take it to the government's treasury. They are not doing that. If that is done, the criminality, the conviction of Selvi Jayalalithaa would be made more clear, and that is the precise reason why they are not doing that.
Kishore Kumar.
I have already maintained you either have to take the technical aspects and then deliberate upon it, or you take the moral aspects and let us talk about it. Now you are jumping between the technical and the moral as and when it is convenient for you. I am saying that this conviction does not apply to her, and since it does not apply, and we are not, and morally we are not in agreement with the Supreme Court's order.
See, there is
where
no
is the question of why do you say that when you say that the Supreme Court has clearly mentioned that the conviction does not apply to her, there stops the technical aspect of it.
There is no moral or legal angle here. There is only a legal angle.
Yeah, legally
the legal angle is this,
we are saying
that
legally,
she's been convicted.
Legally,
that is the reason why
the conviction does not apply to her. It stands abated.
I don't know what reading and what logic, which is extremely unique to you alone, Mr. Kishore Kumar, that you are employing. But Priyamada has a question for you.
Mr. Kishore Kumar, you say that this order does not apply to Ms. Jayalalithaa. Whatever is there on page 570 does not apply to her. So do you agree it applies to your leader, Shashikala?
Yeah, that's why we say that we are not in agreement with the order.
You're not in agreement with the orders doesn't mean that the order will change.
We are not in agreement with the order. Yes, we believe it will change.
Well, with due respect, no convict in this world till now, I can safely say, has ever agreed with the orders of any court that they have gone to. So your disagreement is hardly surprising. But that being said, the fact is the order exists, and we'll pull up again those observations of the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court has not pulled any punches. Let me repeat for you, Mr. Kishore Kumar, just in case you missed it the first time around, where they said that the accused, including A1, Ms. Jayalalithaa, entered into a conspiracy, amassed assets disproportionate to her income, dispersed disproportionate income among others. Several private firms were created which only purchased property. Private companies operated out of Jayalalitha's house, Mr. Kishore Kumar, and then loans were granted to shell companies, and manner in which the money moved suggests laundering, quote unquote, with full knowledge. I repeat, your disagreement doesn't make any difference. You think that all of these observations are worth zero to you?
Whether it makes a difference or not, whether it makes a difference or not is for the court to deliberate when the curative petition.
But the court has already given its judgment. Priyamada, basically it seems to me that it's been a year and a half since the passing away of Jayalalithaa.
It is subject
to AIADMK, with or without Mr. Dinakara, is in a state of disarray. So they are again making this attempt through this portrait to try and piggyback on Jayalalitha's legacy all over again.
Absolutely,
like
absolutely. Because see, when she passed away, of course, AIADMK had a vote bank of 39 to 40%. Now with her death and also the split within the AIADMK, they are desperate to hold on to something. You have Rajnikant, you have Kamal Hassan, you have DMK, such a strong opposition forming, and AIADMK, whether with TTV or without TTV. Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kishore, hear out. So with or without Jayalalithaa, with or without TTV, you want to hold on to Jayalalithaa legacy. That is taking a beating now. So that's why the portrait has been put up there. But my question is, you are saying that in the Supreme Court order, Jayalalithaa has been abetted. Then you are agreeing for that, but you're not agreeing that Shashikala is convicted. It's very funny, the logic. The same Supreme Court order, you are saying since Jayalalithaa has not been mentioned as accused number 1 because of her death, this order, I mean, we are accepting, we have to go by the technicality. Then why are you not going by technicality that Shashikala is an accused?
Yes, we went by the technicality, and that is why Mrs. Shashikala is in the jail.
Oh, okay, so you accept that. What to
we
say?
Are bound by the verdict. Though we are not agreeing with the verdict, we are bound by the verdict.
You just said you're agreeing. You said you're going by the technicality, and that's why she's in the prison, which means you're accepting your leader.
By the technicality. That is why I'm saying going by the technicality.
Convict.
Going by the technicality.
You're agreeing that your leader Shashikala is corrupt.
No, I'm not agreeing. We are not agreeing with the order.
Well, that's great. That's great, of course. I don't really think the last time I heard the Supreme Court wasn't bound by your agreement or otherwise. Sudhir, do you think this gamble is going to work? Finally, if not Jayalalithaa, at least her portrait will be the glue that holds together a fast falling apart AIADMK. One doesn't even know how many factions exist in this party, whether Dinakaran is with them or not.
There may be...
Well, yes, I think the point that Edappadi Palaniswamy, as Chief Minister, wants to convey is that he's the true inheritor of Amma's legacy, along with him, Open. So that's the kind of visual, optical kind of messaging that the ruling AIADMK at least wants to send. Also, they would realize that the kind of politics that is taking place, the Madras High Court's order in the disqualification of MLAs is likely to come up end of this month or probably the first week of March. That may actually put a spanner in the works if the Speaker's decision is not upheld by the Madras High Court. So probably this whole thing was hurried through also to ensure that they can claim them to say that they had put up Jayalalitha's portrait in the assembly despite opposition by both the DMK, Congress and the PMK. So that's the kind of messaging that is going across. There are rumors that the two factions are in talks, but my sources telling me that nothing of the sort is really taking place because action is still being taken against TTV Dinakaran camp followers by the Edappadi Palaniswamy and OPS camp. So in that sense, still things are in a state of flux and much will depend on what the High Court says on the disqualification of MLAs. But yes, having said that, Jayalalithaa still remains the only glue which can bind all these factions of the AIADMK together whenever the elections are held.
Well, Mr. Kishore Kumar, you've got the portrait in the assembly. How long some of your MLAs will be in that assembly will be decided very soon. That, of course, remains something that is still mired in mystery. But for the time being, full points for at least trying to use Amma, her portrait, her legacy in keeping all your warring factions together. Out of time, you've heard all the sides right here in People's Court. Thank you very much, all gentlemen and Priyamada, for joining us on the show. Thanks to all of our viewers for having tuned in. Quick break.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.